Alright, so you're in the market for a high-performance, ultra-luxurious electric SUV, but you want something a little bit more luxurious and less ubiquitous than a Tesla. Well, this is Mercedes' answer to that. It's called the AMG EQE SUV. And earlier this year, when I reviewed the EQE 500, which is the lower trim level of this, I was very impressed with its luxuriousness, its interior, its performance. And this takes what that vehicle offers and steps it up to a next level. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the AMG EQE SUV and whether it lives up to the AMG name. Alright, so we have the AMG EQE SUV, and this is an entirely new trim level for 2024. They've never before had the AMG EQE, and this is also one of the very first all-electric AMGs on the market. Now, let's start off with the exterior design, because it does look a little bit different than the EQE 500 I reviewed earlier this year. Now, starting off with the front end, you do get LED headlights as standard on all AMG EQEs, and you get the digital light feature. Now, you can tell what vehicles come with the digital light feature because they have this light bar that extends from the driver's side to the passenger side. Looks really good at night. And then they also have the digital light script located on the side of the headlight as well. And what that is it's essentially a projector light, so it can actually flash images onto the road or onto objects in front of you, and it can alert you if there's any danger up ahead. But it also has a pretty cool startup and turn off animation that I'll try to throw up on the screen as well. Now, coming across the grille, this does look a little bit different than the standard EQE 500 because you have the AMG grille with these vertical slots up and down the grille. And obviously there's no ventilation here because you don't have an engine under the hood. And that's why this is just a big piece of plastic, but it looks pretty good with those vertical slots. You got AMG badging over here and then your camera for your 360-degree camera. Now, not only is the grille different than the EQE 500, but the AMG also has a different front splitter as well. Looks a little bit more aggressive. It's kind of hard to tell that the front end is different than the EQE 500, but there are small touches here and there. And then my particular vehicle also comes with the AMG Night package, and that adds some of these black accents that you see up front, including darkened slots on the grille as well. Now, my specific one also comes with the AMG Night Package Plus, which includes additional darkened badges on the outside. So you can see here this 4MATIC badge is actually darkened. The EQE badge on the side of the vehicle is darkened as well. Now, coming down to the bottom, you also have the side seal that is also darkened to make it look a little bit more aggressive. You'll notice that you have flared side seals on the AMG version as compared to the standard EQE 500, which makes this look a little bit more aggressive. And coming over to the side, you'll notice that the entire shape of the vehicle is generally more round, and that has got to be one of my complaints of this vehicle. I do like that with the AMG Night package, you have some darkened accents all throughout, but I kind of wish they would have made this a little bit more muscular looking than rounded looking, because this is the AMG model. It's meant to be the high performance version. And it's kind of hard to tell that this is, unless you pay attention to some of those accents. Now, coming across the back, very similar to the EQE 500, you've got this large light bar that extends for your taillights from the left to the right-hand side. And like I noted, this has the AMG Nights Package Plus, so you've got the darkened AMG badge, darkened Mercedes badge, and your EQE badge is darkened as well. And then coming to the back, you have a different rear diffuser on the AMG version, and this one, of course, has the darkened accents as well. I do like that. I don't know if it's worth the extra premium, but the white and the black look good. Now, in case you're wondering about what color this is, it's called Manufacture Diamond White Metallic, and there is some metallic spec, especially when you take a look at this under the sunlight. It does have a very beautiful metallic spec to it, but there are some other cool colors out there as well, including the blue color that I reviewed in the EQE 500. Now, talking about the length of this vehicle, it's about the same length as the EQE 500, just a tad bit longer because of the additional inches in the front and the back for that rear diffuser and the front splitter. This is sitting at 192.1 inches, which is almost the exact same size as the GLE SUV. So this is definitely a mid-size crossover based on its length. Next up, let's talk about the wheels and tires. Now, first off, you get Michelin Pilot Sport tires. They're 275 millimeter wide, and they're wrapped around 21-inch wheels. These are the Y-spoke design. These are optional wheels. They don't come standard on every single AMG. Now, this one also comes with the 17.4-inch carbon ceramic brakes. You can tell what they are based on the bronze color that you have on the brake caliper. This is about a $5,500 option, and they're meant to be more lightweight, they're meant to be stronger, so if you take this thing to a track, these are going to last better over time and have less of that heat fade that you experience from traditional brakes. That being said, it's not my favorite braking system for day-to-day driving, and we'll talk about that when we get behind the wheel. Now, coming to the back, let's talk about the rear wheels and tires. The one thing I want to mention here is you have rear wheel steering. So similar to the EQE 500, this thing can turn upwards of 9 degrees, and the direction depends on how fast you're going. If you're in like a parking lot like I am today, this vehicle's rear wheel steering will turn the opposite direction of the front wheels to make your turning radius a lot smaller. It's actually a 37.4 foot turning radius, and this thing feels really nimble, very easy to maneuver in tight spots. I think rear wheel steering should be included on every vehicle because it really is fantastic. Now, at higher speeds, these rear wheels will turn in the same direction as the front to make it a little bit easier to maneuver in and out of traffic when you're driving on the freeway. Now, the AMG EQE does come with the Airmatic suspension, which is just Mercedes jargon for an air suspension system. And this one being the AMG version, it has the AMG Ride Control Sport suspension, so it's specifically tuned for high performance driving. Now, this does have the self-leveling feature, so if you have a lot of cargo in the vehicle, the air suspension will automatically raise to make the vehicle more comfortable driving down the road. Now, the Airmatic suspension can adjust the dampening, the stiffness, every 50 milliseconds depending on your driving conditions. Now, we'll talk about how this suspension feels when we get behind the wheel. All right, now let's talk about what's going on under the hood. Now, I'm being metaphorical here because I can't actually open up this hood. There's a bunch of electrical components here, and Mercedes reserves the right to open it to your local service advisor at your nearby dealership. The only way I can really access anything here is using the flap over here on the driver's side, which allows me to pour in some windshield wiper fluid. That's pretty much it. Nonetheless, let's talk about the power here. Believe it or not, this is the most powerful Mercedes SUV you can buy. We're talking 617 horsepower, 701 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you choose the optional $4,000 AMG Dynamics Plus package, which this particular vehicle does come with, that unlocks upwards of 677 horsepower and 738 pound-feet of torque. With that package, this thing will do 0 to 60 in a whopping 3.4 seconds and a top speed of 149 miles per hour. Now, the Dynamics package also includes the set of AMG Performance Soundscapes, which is a set of interior and exterior sounds to make this vehicle sound a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more thrilling when you're stepping on the accelerator. Now, regardless of whether you get that option or not, every single AMG EQE SUV comes with standard all-wheel drive through its dual motor setup. Now, in case you're wondering about towing capacity, you can tow a maximum of 4,000 pounds in the AMG EQE. So since this is an electric vehicle, let's talk about the range and the charging infrastructure. Now, this one being the AMG version, it has a little bit of compromised range compared to the standard EQE 500 because it is more powerful. Now, this one comes with a max range of 235 miles. And in my experience driving this vehicle around for a week, doing mostly highway driving, it's achieving just around that, 235 miles. I'm sure if you have more city driving, or if you're a little bit lighter on the pedal than I am, you could probably get a little bit more range out of this thing, but 235 seems pretty accurate. Now, this vehicle comes with a 90.6 kilowatt battery, and using a 170 kilowatt DC fast charger, this thing can go from 10 to 80% in just about 32 minutes. Now, if you choose a level 2 charger or just your regular 240 charger at home, this thing will go from about 0 to 100% just about 10.5 hours, which seems normal for just an overnight charge. Now, this vehicle does come with a 9.6 kilowatt onboard charger. Now, in case you're wondering what kind of plug this is called the CCS plug, and it's used in a lot of electric vehicles. But starting in 2024, Mercedes will offer an adapter so that you can actually plug into a Tesla supercharger station. And then starting in 2025, every single electric Mercedes will come with the NACS, the North American Charging Standard plug, which is used by Teslas, and you can then plug in without an adapter to any Tesla supercharger network. A lot of vehicles are moving that way, but it should make it a little bit more accessible to get into a charging station. Now, in terms of charging infrastructure, you can use any of the dozen different companies to charge your EQE, and there are tens of thousands of stations out there, and it's only going to get better when you can access the Tesla supercharger network. Now, Mercedes offers something called the Mercedes Me app, which is included in your purchase of the EQE, and it's one app that pretty much centralizes your charging network. So you have all of the chargers from EVgo, Electrify America, ChargePoint, all of the major companies in one app. So when you get to a destination, you can pretty much just plug and play and pay with just one app rather than having a dozen different apps on your phone. It makes it a little bit easier to transition from internal combustion to electric vehicles. Now, Mercedes also offers 2 years of complimentary 30-minute charging with Electrify America with every new purchase of an electric Mercedes. All right, now let's jump inside and talk about the interior. Now, I did a comprehensive review of the interior of the EQE when I did my EQE 500 500 review just a few months ago. So if you guys are interested in that, check it out. Today's video, I'm going to discuss some of the highlights and some of the features that weren't included on the EQE 500. Now, before we move forward, I want to make a shameless plug for Octane Coffee Company. It is the car-themed coffee company for all car enthusiasts. They have a variety of different roasts from light, medium to dark roast. There's some seasonal blends as well. If you enjoy a good cup of coffee when you're going on a cruise, you're gonna wanna check out OctaneCoffeeCompany.com. You can get 10% off your first order using promo code Octane10. All right, now let's jump back to the video. So starting off with the interior, the color choices here are the same as the EQE 500 that I had. It's called Neva Gray, which is kind of like this white grayish leather with a Biscaya blue interior. So the top of the dash and the door panels are all outlined in this beautiful blue leather, and then the bottom is all in white. One complaint I have is the floor mats are blue, but then underneath that, the entire floor is white carpeting. Don't know how that's gonna last over time. Now, I love the interior here. This has got to be one of my most favorite interiors in any vehicle. You've got copper stitching all across the door panel. It extends all the way to the passenger side over the dashboard. You've got beautiful ambient lighting here with 64 different color options. Now, my particular trim level in the vehicle I'm sitting in today is the Pinnacle trim, which is the most top of the line. So this ambient lighting also has different types of effects. So when you turn up the temperature, it'll flash red. If you turn it down, it'll turn blue. If you're merging into somebody in your blind spot, it'll flash the ambient lighting red so that you're alert and aware that you might crash into somebody. So it's got those effects. Now, below that ambient lighting is a beautiful copper trim piece that goes behind the screens all the way onto the passenger side. I mean, it's just a symphony of beauty on the inside of the EQE. On the door panel, you've got aluminum door handles, aluminum switches to move your seats. Now, heated seats are standard on the AMG EQE, but ventilated seats are about a $450 option. When you activate the heated seats, your heated steering wheel will automatically turn on. A heated steering wheel is also a $250 option. Below that, you have your beautiful Burmester audio system. They make the most beautiful grills on the inside of lots of Mercedes. It's a 15-speaker audio system, and then you actually have the subwoofers built into the frame of the vehicle near the front. So you have this front bass system that resonates through the frame of the vehicle. Now, speaking of the speakers, you have the AMG sound experience. So when you're accelerating, when you're locking and unlocking the car, there are various sounds that this vehicle will produce, especially if you put it into Sport Plus mode. It's going to sound aggressive. It's going to pump in some of this electronic techno-like sound. It's not meant to simulate exhaust, but it's meant to kind of stimulate more of your senses when you're accelerating. Now, on the outside, it's a little subtle sound that it makes when you lock and unlock the vehicle. I noticed that the AMG version doesn't have as many exterior sounds as the standard EQE 500 I reviewed just a few months ago. A little bit odd, but if you don't like sounds, there's not very many of them, and you can also shut them off in the infotainment screen. Now, when you're going less than 20 miles per hour, this vehicle will also emit an exterior sound so the people around you know that there's a moving object coming up to them. You know, electric vehicles are so quiet and it becomes dangerous, especially with little kids running around, because they don't know that there's a 7,000-pound vehicle approaching them. So it has that as a safety feature, and it kind of has this like electronic sound on the outside. Behind that, you have some nice aluminum switches for your windows, lock and unlock, and then you can fold the mirrors. And then you've got soft touch padding where you're going to rest your elbow. Below at the bottom, you've got a little bit of a storage compartment to put like a water bottle and the button to open up your trunk. Next, let's talk about these seats. They are very comfortable and they are specific to the AMG version. You've got some perforated leather, a pretty good design to it. It doesn't look super aggressive like some other AMG products out there. And you've got a little AMG logo on the top of the headrest, which is also adjustable depending on how far forward you want it. Now, one feature I feel is missing, and it's not even available as an option on the EQE SUV, is massaging seats. Now, I get that this isn't the EQS, which does offer that, but I wish that was optional on the AMG version, especially in this Pinnacle trim, because when you are stopping this vehicle to charge it, it would be nice to have some sort of massaging seat function so that you can relax, especially given the price point of this vehicle, but you can't get it in the AMG EQE. But what you do get is seat kinetics, and you can activate it using the infotainment screen, and what that does is it makes micro adjustments to the seat position when you're driving down the road so that your body doesn't get tired on long road trips. Now, moving above you, you have this nice leather wrap dash, and you've got a 29-inch color head-up display. That is standard on the Pinnacle trim, but it doesn't come standard on the AMG EQE. It's got a lot of functionality. There's various different screens that you can cycle through, from like an eco mode to something more simplistic. And when you have your navigation system on, it will tell you exactly where you need to turn and how many miles until your next exit. Very robust head-up display. Mercedes has one of the most advanced ones in the industry. Next up, let's talk the steering wheel. It's very similar to the EQE 500, but this has some pretty large aluminum paddle shifters, and it's real aluminum as well. Now, the paddle shifters are used to change your regen braking from strong to normal to no regen. And then this has a flat bottom steering wheel with AMG at the bottom. Now, in terms of controlling the steering wheel, on the left-hand side at the top, you've got your home button for your instrument gauge cluster display. You can cycle through a variety of different menus. Now, these are all touch-sensitive buttons. It's really just one button, but depending on where your finger is placed, your vehicle will know exactly what you want to do. The buttons on the bottom section are to control your adaptive cruise control functionality. And then on the right-hand side are the buttons to control your infotainment screen. So similar to how the left-hand side controls the gauge cluster, the right-hand side controls the infotainment screen, so you never actually have to take your hands off the steering wheel. Below that are just your typical volume controls, your favorites button, your voice activation, and your phone controls. Now, the downside here is there's no physical volume button on the inside. You have to use either the slider on the steering wheel. There's also a set of haptic feedback touchscreen controls on the center arm console to adjust the volume, or you can, of course, do it on the screen, but there's no physical button to do that. So it kind of takes a little bit getting used to. Now, moving below that on the steering wheel, you've got the set of 2 light-up displays. And on the right-hand side is a knob where you can push it to activate your various drive modes, and then you can move the actual rotary knob around it to cycle through the various drive modes in the vehicle. On the left-hand side, you don't have any type of rotary knob, but it's a dual display. So you can click the top part, cycle to whatever menu you want, and click on the toggle switch on the left-hand side of the screen to activate that menu. Now, next, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, and that is this 56-inch panel that Mercedes calls the Hyperscreen. Now, this is only available on the AMG version of the EQE, and it's available, of course, on the EQS SUV and sedan. And this is a beautiful screen. I've only experienced it once before, and I'm still really impressed with it. There's actually 3 different displays here. You got a 12.3-inch gauge cluster display, which is kind of standard in the industry. Then you've got a massive 17.7-inch infotainment screen, and it's kind of got these curved edges to make it look like it's pretty much coming out of the panel. It doesn't just look like a screen is just blopped in there. It kind of integrates into the entire piece. And then on the passenger side is another 12.3-inch display, and the passenger can control a variety of different features there. Now, starting off with a 12.3-inch gauge cluster display, it's exactly the same as all other Mercedes products I've reviewed. You can go through a variety of different themes, from sport to understated to a service mode or a full screen navigation. It's a very robust screen, but pretty intuitive and easy to use, and you can control it using the buttons on the steering wheel. Moving towards the 17.7-inch touchscreen, first off, it is fingerprint resistant, and I will say it does seem like it's a little bit better than the EQE 500, which really attracted a lot of fingerprints on its screen. Now, this is an OLED display, so it's very high quality, and there's 2 different themes you can pick for your main home screen. You can either do a full screen navigation, and that's called like the floating dock view, or you can choose the more traditional version, which just has a little bit of a high-level navigation screen at the top, and then a set of your applications located at the bottom. It's more of the traditional MBUX software rather than the full screen navigation, because you might not always want that on your main screen. Now, there are actually a dozen different haptic feedback sensors located in this screen, so every time you push a button, it will vibrate to let you know that you've actually pushed something. And there's actually eye tracking here, so it can actually tell if you're looking at the screen or if you're looking away. It might even alert you that you should pay more attention to the road. Now, of course, you get wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and it's a very easy transition between the two. And it's a very nice UI. You always have your climate control sections at the bottom. You always have your seek and track buttons, and you have a home button to quickly access your main menus. Now, the screen on the passenger side has pretty much the same functionality as the main infotainment screen. I'm really not sure why they have it there, but I think it just adds to the appeal of the interior being technologically packed. The passenger can input navigation information. They can also adjust the ambient lighting. They can actually hook up Bluetooth headphones and listen to whatever they want using the screen on the passenger side. Now, when there actually isn't somebody sitting in the passenger seat, the screen defaults to kind of this AMG Stars type of theme to it. You can't actually turn it on. The only time you can turn it on is if somebody is sitting in that seat, and it has eye tracking technology to know if somebody's actually sitting there. Also, from the driver's side, taking a look at the passenger screen, it's not very bright and it's not very noticeable, so it's not going to be distracting for you. It's a much better better viewing angle if you're sitting in the passenger seat. All right, now let's talk about some of the apps baked into this infotainment screen. First off, let's talk about the charging app, and it's typically found in the upper left hand of the screen. Opening it up, there's a variety of different settings here. First, you can find different charging stations. And it is a very advanced system where it will not only show you what charging stations are around you, it will tell you exactly how many charging stations there are. It will tell you how much power they can shoot out of the charging station. It will also tell you exactly how much time it will take to get completely charged. And it will even have photos and the typical availability of chargers at that specific station. So lots of advanced features that I showed off in the EQE 500. You can also activate some features to maximize your range. So there's a button you can click where it will limit the climate control, it will reduce the ambient lighting, and that way it'll add a little bit of extra range, especially if you're going on a road trip. That will be handy. You can also set specific charging schedules. You can set your max charge so that you can maintain the longevity of the battery. Now you can also go into your off-road mode, and that is where if you choose to off-road in your EQE SUV, which I'm not quite sure why you would, you can actually raise the suspension in this app. You can also see your pitch and roll and what direction of travel you're going, what elevation you're at. Right now I'm at 4,700 feet. And so just some various functionality there baked in. Within that app, you can click the camera button and it will actually give you an image of what's going on underneath the vehicle. Now, there's not actually a camera underneath the car. What it does is it uses fancy software that essentially takes a photo of what's going on in front of you, and as you're driving it forward, it will move that photo underneath the vehicle to show you what's going on underneath. So if you do take it off-roading, that is a beneficial feature, but I personally wouldn't recommend it in this vehicle. Now, speaking of cameras, you can push the button on the center arm console and it will open up your 360-degree camera, and it gives you this cool 3D view from the outside as if a drone is flying around the vehicle and taking photos of the car. But it's a pretty cool party trick. Now, personally, I love the bird's eye view a little bit more because that kind of gives you a better idea of what's going on around the vehicle, but this is definitely a fun feature to show off to your friends. This vehicle also comes with the parking assistance feature, so if you're in a crowded parking lot, you can have this vehicle find a parking spot for you, and this vehicle will automatically park the car. It's not a new feature, but it's still nice that it's included in this vehicle. You also have the MBUX AI built into the system, and you can ask it questions like you would a smart home device. Now, this one being the AMG, there's an AMG performance page, and you can open it up to look at what your battery percentage is, where the power is being sent, exactly how many volts or amps are being absorbed by each motor. You can look at the RPM of each motor. You can see what your steering angles are for the front and rear wheels, and you can tell how much power is being sent to each axle. So it's an application where you can get a lot of in-depth details about your vehicle, especially when you take it to a racetrack or you're driving it very spiritedly down the road. Now, my particular vehicle also comes with a $200 dash cam, and that will record whatever's going on in front of you. And so if you take this to a racetrack, not only can you time what your circuit is, but you could also record it and take a look at it later. So if you are really thinking about taking your AMG EQE to the racetrack, I recommend you purchase this option because this application saves a lot of data that then you can go through and try to figure out how to improve it over time. Moving below this infotainment screen, you have a carbon fiber trim piece. Now, standard is a wood trim piece, but this one has the $1,500 carbon fiber trim package, which really just adds this carbon fiber piece in the middle. So I don't know if I'd recommend it, but opening up this flap, you have a hidden wireless charging pad, which fits the largest phone. It's not the quickest. It only adds a little bit of juice, but it's nice to have. You have 2 USB ports, a pretty large compartment, and 2 cup holders, which are actually removable, and then you can open it up to a larger compartment as well. Moving behind that, you have your touch-sensitive controls, haptic feedback for your quick access buttons. So you can quickly open up your AMG modes, you can quickly open up your camera, your charging information, and you've actually got a fingerprint reader here. And Mercedes says it can store up to like 800 different pieces of information for a specific user profile. So if you like your seats a certain way, you like your music station set a certain way, maybe certain drive modes, when you get in the vehicle, you can scan your fingerprint and it will automatically pull up those modes specific to you. So it helps when you have a variety of different people driving the same car. You also got your volume slider and your mute button. Moving behind that, a nice soft touch arm console. Opening it up in the center, it has 2 USB ports and it's pretty deep overall, but not too much to report back there. Now, moving above you, there's no rear view camera mirror, unfortunately, and you can't even get that as an option, but you do have the home link system. And then above that, you have a touch sensitive control for your panoramic sunroof. So you swipe, that will open up the sunshade, and then you can swipe again to actually open up the sunroof. And the panoramic sunroof is standard on all AMG EQEs. Now, jumping into the second row, you got the same nice use of materials on the door panel, soft touch up top. You've got aluminum trim pieces, a little bit more of that ambient lighting. And then the seats are actually pretty nice as well. They look very similar to the front row. There's not too much in terms of adjustments back there, but it's pretty comfortable to sit in, and you've got 2 cup holders in the back using the center armrest. Now, legroom back there is pretty decent. You're looking at 40.6 inches of legroom, and me sitting behind myself, I got plenty of legroom and also plenty of headroom above me. Now, with this one being the pinnacle trim, it comes with the 4-zone climate control. So you've got 2 different zones in the back. You can adjust the temperature, the fan direction, the fan speed. Really nice to have back there. Jumping into the trunk area, you have a power liftgate that you activate by pushing the Mercedes logo in the trunk. And then climbing in there, there's not that much to report. You do have a cigarette style power outlet on the left-hand side, a couple of hooks to hang your groceries on the right-hand side. You get a little tonneau cover to cover up some valuables. And then underneath the trunk floor, a small space where you can put your charging cable, maybe a laptop to hide out of plain sight, but really not much functionality back there. Also, not too much in terms of cargo volume. Only 14 cubic feet of space behind the second row. Now, if you fold down the second row, you get up to 55 cubic feet of space, but it's nothing to write home about. One complaint I do have is there's no type of household power outlets located inside the vehicle. I feel like that's missing, especially if you're charging the vehicle. It'd be nice to have a power outlet so you can either play on your computer or charge your phone without having to actually put it on the wireless charging pad. All right, now let's talk about some of the optional features that are included in the vehicle I'm sitting in today. First, you got the air balance cabin purification system, which uses activated charcoal to actually purify the air inside of the cabin. So if you're driving in an area where there's pretty bad air quality, this vehicle essentially ionizes the air, making it a little bit cleaner on the inside. It's very helpful for people with allergies or some type of lung condition. Mine also comes with the Air Balance interior fragrance system, and that is essentially a cartridge that you plug inside of the glove compartment, and it will actually pump in different fragrances inside of the vehicle, making it feel a little bit more fresh inside. Now, for $200, you can get the Energizing Comfort feature. And that is a feature you can access using the comfort menu within your applications. It's about a dozen different types of modes where, when activated, it will not only adjust your seat, it will either turn on the heated or ventilated seats, it will pump in some fragrance inside the vehicle, and it's essentially meant to de-stress your body. So I imagine this is helpful if you're maybe taking it to a charging station and you're just sitting there for half an hour. You can kind of go through this almost vitality or meditation sequence where it will activate these 3 different screen panels and create this cool looking design across them where it kind of calms you down and makes you feel a little bit like one with the car. There's also a tips menu where you can go through a variety of actual meditation exercises, and there's a voice that will actually walk you through what you should be doing, like flex this muscle or release this muscle or take a deep breath. And so there's a lot of cool, what I would call mental health features baked in that can maybe calm you down a little bit or help you de-stress after a long day. Now, my vehicle also comes with the acoustic package for $1,100, and that includes laminated glass and front windshield and an acoustic membrane with infrared absorbing glass. It's a lot of fancy jargon, but it is a very quiet cabin. Now, this one being the pinnacle trim, I get standard MBUX augmented reality navigation system where if I'm driving down the road and it's telling me to turn left in the next 500 feet, it will come up with the front camera system and will have this floating arrow projected onto the road using the infotainment screen so that I know exactly what road I need to turn on. Now, mine also has the optional $250 Track Pace app. And this app has a lot of functionality where not only can you pull up different racetracks, and so when you get to that racetrack, you can actually see what your best times are. You can also save tracks on your infotainment screen or in your software. And then you can also add different racetracks as well. There's also a drag race app where it will actually give you a Christmas tree type of light where it will go from red, yellow to green, and you can accelerate and it will record your G-forces, your acceleration, how many feet you've traveled, lots of information there. And then there's your telemetry app where it will show you your speed, your accelerator pedal, your brake pedal, all of the stats that you may need if you're taking this vehicle vehicle to the track. Now, the one option my vehicle doesn't come with is the winter package. It's a $1,500 option, but it will add heated rear seats and a heated windshield wiper reservoir and heated windshield wiper nozzle. So if you are in a cold climate, you park this thing outside, that's gonna be a necessary option to have. Now, since we're already behind the wheel, let's take this out on the road and see how it drives. First off, I'll show you the Mercedes key. You got your lock, unlock, and your trunk release button on the front. On the back, you got AMG, and then your panic button up at the top. Now, you can also download an app where you can turn on the climate control before you enter the vehicle and lock and unlock the car and track the car as well. Now, turning this vehicle on, you push the brake button, and there's a center button over here for your start stop. And it'll make this cool noise, like this techno electronic noise, to let you know that it's turned the vehicle on. So one of the first things you'll notice is how great that rear wheel steering is. Definitely makes this thing feel a little bit more nimble than it actually is. The other thing I've noticed myself doing is I put this vehicle into the strong recuperation or strong regen mode. And then I can technically drive this car just using one pedal. It's a very aggressive regen mode, so you definitely have to get used to it, but it works really well to do some one pedal driving. Next thing you'll notice about this interior is, I don't know if it's because of the acoustic package, but it is a very quiet interior cabin. I mean, there's times where this thing feels like it's going slow, even though you're going the speed limit, maybe even surpassing the speed limit, because it's so quiet inside. You know, you can't actually tell the speed because it feels like you're going 20 miles an hour, when in all reality, you're actually going 45, but you can't tell because it insulates it so well. It's gotta be hands down one of the most quietest electric vehicles I've ever driven, and they're already quiet to begin with. And I do think that air ionizer system definitely makes a difference, because there are times when I open the door after I've parked this vehicle and it feels like the cabin is almost depressurized, kind of like an airplane. So I'm not sure if that does have to do with the air ionization system or what, but it definitely feels like you're a little bit insulated inside of the cabin here. All right, let's talk about the ride quality here. We're about to go over some train tracks. Let's see how it feels inside, and then I'll share my thoughts on how it's felt over the last week of driving this vehicle. Okay, here we go. So here's my thoughts. It is a pretty comfortable ride, but it's not the softest vehicle I've driven. And I actually think the EQE 500 I reviewed was a little bit softer, which I think would make sense because this has the aromatic suspension, but it's the AMG Sport Tuned aromatic suspension. So, you know, with AMG, it's gonna be a little bit more aggressive than your typical soft, luxurious car because it's meant to handle a little bit better. So it's not rough by any means, but it's just not as soft as the EQE 500 I reviewed recently. Now, we're about to enter onto a freeway on-ramp. I'm gonna put it into Sport Plus mode, and then you can immediately hear that AMG performance sound being pumped in, but let's see how this feels at wide open throttle, even though there's no throttle body here. Wow. This thing gets up to speed quick. There's no joke. I mean, this thing is fast. It's a very quick vehicle, and I think that sound adds to it. It makes it feel even more high performance than it maybe even is, because you have the sound being pumped through. And then the other thing is, when you let off of the accelerator, that strong regen braking, you know, it quickly brings it down to speed. So I like that one pedal driving. I get more used to it as I've been driving this vehicle. It makes it a little bit more seamless. You don't have to constantly go from the accelerator to the brake pedal. Let's do another pull here as we get onto the freeway. Wow. I mean, it feels like a roller coaster. This thing accelerates incredibly well. Now, one feature I wouldn't recommend getting is the carbon ceramic brakes. Now, this is something I've talked about in other Mercedes products, including the GLE 63S I reviewed just a few months ago. That one also had the carbon ceramic brakes, and I'm sure they work fantastic on the racetrack. They grab really well. They're not gonna have as much brake fade. They're gonna last longer. But in day-to-day driving, they're very hard to understand. Sometimes when you're coming to a stop, it feels like you need to add a little bit more pressure to the brake pedal for the brakes to activate. And then once you do that, they seem to grab on a little bit too tight. And so you kind of get this jerking action when you're using these brakes because they're just a little bit too powerful. Personally, I would recommend not getting the carbon ceramic brakes unless you're going to take this to a racetrack because they're just a little bit hard to understand. Now, next up, let's talk about some of the safety tech here. This has some of the most advanced safety tech in the industry. You've got automatic lane changes, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, lane centering, blind spot monitoring, emergency braking. The list goes on. Now, I will say the automatic lane change has been a little annoying at times. And why I say that is, I've had the cruise control on, and let's say I'm coasting at 70 miles an hour and the vehicle in front of me is going 65. Well, this vehicle will automatically make the decision. If there's space to the left or the right, it will pass the vehicle in front of me so that it can actually go back up to my preset cruise control setting. Now, that has worked well sometimes, but other times there may not be a vehicle in front of me, and for whatever reason, this vehicle decides to automatically change lanes. And then after changing lanes, give it maybe 30 seconds, it will choose to automatically change lanes back to the lane that it moved me out of. So it's sometimes kind of unpredictable as to why it's changing lanes. I didn't experience this in the EQE 500 SUV I reviewed, so I'm not sure if it's specific to the AMG or if it's just been updated since that vehicle I reviewed, and so it's got a little bit more functionality to it, which kind of makes it a little bit more annoying. Now, in typical Mercedes fashion, there's tons of other safety features built in. It's got a feature where if you're about to get into a loud car accident, the vehicle will emit what it's called a pink noise, which will automatically trigger a natural human instinct to block out whatever sound is coming afterwards to minimize ear damage. There's also a feature here where if you're getting into a side impact crash, the left and the right bolster on the passenger and driver side will automatically move your body away from that accident so that you minimize the amount of damage that you can get to the side of your body. This vehicle also has car-to-car communication. So if it notices that there's some sort of hazard on the road, this can communicate to other vehicles out there. It goes to like a centralized Mercedes center, and then that will alert the other vehicles that are about to approach that same area. All right, let's do another little acceleration here. 3, 2, 1. Wow, definitely gets those G-forces going. That is wicked quick. Wow. All right, next up, let's talk about the pricing. Now, the AMG EQE SUV starts at around $109,300. Now, this one on the screen in front of you is essentially fully equipped, and because of that, it tops out just around $131,000. Now, that is expensive, no doubt about that, but this is pretty close to the competition. The closest competitor to this is the BMW iX M60, and that one has a starting price of around $111,000. So it's definitely not cheap, but it is on par with the competition. Now, next up, let's talk reliability and warranty. Now, this vehicle is a little bit too new to know exactly how reliable it's going to be over time, but Mercedes offers a 4-year, 50,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty and a pretty impressive 10-year, 155,000-mile battery warranty. You also get 2 years, 20,000 miles of complimentary maintenance included with every new purchase of an electric Mercedes. Well, there you have it, folks. That finishes off my comprehensive review of the Mercedes-Benz AMG EQE SUV. So what are my overall thoughts? Well, this is definitely not an affordable vehicle, and you can get similar performance from some cheaper competitors. That being said, I've reviewed a lot of electric vehicles on my channel, and none of them quite feel like this one when you're sitting behind the wheel. It's ultra luxurious, it's got plenty of tech, it's very sound insulated. I mean, this thing is a cut above. It feels like a Mercedes. Now, this vehicle is not for everybody. If you are the type of person that wants the ultra luxurious, ultra powerful, wicked quick AMG, but in an electric form, well, the AMG EQE SUV is for you. But if you just want something ultra luxurious, but you don't necessarily need all that power, I recommend you check out the EQE 500 I reviewed a few months ago. It's still extremely luxurious, but it's just not as powerful as the AMG version. Also, if you want something maybe even more luxurious and you definitely don't need all that power, consider the EQS, which starts around $105,000, pretty much similar to the price tag of this, but you're gonna have the option for a third row. It's gonna be even more luxurious, even bigger. But for me, I love the AMG EQE SUV, and I'd recommend it to anybody in the market for a high performance, very luxurious electric crossover. That finishes off today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos, everything from AMG EQEs to Fiat 500Cs. Also check me out on all the social media at Schwazy_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay Schwazy, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.